Whereas this map actually pertains to what Andhra was one state. That is the difference. Now, what about this map? That is actually a representation of actual data collected from the field in order to create a geodatabase, and because it is created in a ArcGIS platform, then the operator can make use of this data or the geodata for all sorts and then create a map of this kind. Only difference is the map you see there, that is a vector data based map. There are points represented, there are lines represented, as well as polygons. I had made a mention of points, lines, and polygon earlier in a previous class, and this is actually the example of application of this concept vector data in a database, and that data is the cartographer has suitably converted into a wall map. Well, when I say wall map, the use of that map is only for a display in the office, display in a gallery. Well, something more about this. What is this? CD had, maybe 7 years ago, carried out a survey of something like 33 municipalities in the erstwhile Andhra Pradesh. 33 municipalities. This is one example of one particular municipality that you find on the wall. And the Andhra Pradesh government or concerned municipalities provided 9 themes of data, 9 layers of data. But in fact, under the project, a turnkey project, CED staff had surveyors and so on have identified 42 or 43 different themes. 42 or 43 different themes. And each is represented by a symbol or some kind of a symbology, scheme of symbology. Symbology can be, symbology you will come across in an arc map. Symbology can be color. Basic colors, what are the basic colors? I would imagine you will know what are the basic colors. Basic colors are blue, green, and red. Then there are complementary colors, about which I did not make a mention of. Complementary colors are cyan, magenta, and yellow, and also black. Also black. So these collection of colors, primary colors and the complementary colors, can be very sensibly and artfully employed in plotting or in providing colors to the polygons in the map. In other words, actually cartography is part science and part art. Don't ignore the artistic mind you might need in order to make a map of some sort. For example, I'm not sure how many of you had carefully looked at the political map of India. I use the word political. Political is the theme of the map. So what it will hold is, like, for example, the boundaries of the 29 states and union territories. Now, if you recall or if you go now after the class and check the boundaries, the color given to Tamil Nadu state and Kerala state, because we share a common border, will not be identical. This you have to keep in mind. In other words, if you provided similar colors across the border, the user, the map reader, will be at a loss. In other words, map is actually meant for viewing. It is a summary of data. For example, topographic sheet on the one hand. Check. In the topographic sheet, we make use of a whole lot of legends. A whole lot of information is contained in the topographic sheet against the municipal administration, etc. of Andhra Pradesh. There is a database, and which can be, like I said, 44 different layers. When you say 44 different layers, it means 44 themes. That's what it is. Basically, all the data is organized in the database, in a geodatabase, as thematic, as files, and in files there will be records, and for each theme there will be a file. The greatest advantage of being in the database is you can mix and match different files. That is how this map is created. They have made it shows, you can check what is called the legend given in the map and figure out what are the different objects that are displayed in the map in a 2-dimension. Then, if you look at the history of mapping, it's actually pretty old. In other words, you can say that it is as old as the civilization itself. It is as old as the civilization itself. In other words, okay, one more thing about this map you see in the classroom is that there is what is called gratitude. In other words, there are a boundary line, and on which the latitudes and longitudes are marked. In other words, there was a time in the human civilization when those pioneers were ignorant of latitude and longitude. So their maps, they had drawn on the cave walls or even papyrus, but without latitude and longitude. Latitude and longitude is something new, compared to the older versions of maps. And now we have this division of the globe into latitudinal lines, that is connecting the North Pole to South Pole, and the longitudinal lines, just the opposite, longitudinal lines connecting the poles, and the latitudinal lines drawn parallel to the equator toward both poles. The advantages are the essential use of this latitude and longitude arrangement is that it helps you to create a map of a region on a flat sheet of paper which is actually a part of the globe. Yes, what is the globe? Globe is circular or spherical. And this spherical area, well, we can use the word polygon. The spherical polygon is presented as a flat polygon in a map. And that is enabled by what is called projection. And of course, definitely you will have a class on projections used, and yes, need for projection, types of projection, the processes, etc., making projections in one of the classes. And now, I'm not sure whether you got an opportunity ever to look at the topographic sheet of at least India. Did you see the topographic sheet in your course of study, whatever you studied, or as part of the GIS course you are engaged in the CED? I need an answer, one person, yes or no.
Yes.
Okay. So, this is a fantastic instrument, actually. This is a fantastic map. So, this map will have, if you carefully go back and look at the map will have at the top right-hand corner a unique ID, a alphanumeric ID. A trained person will immediately know by just looking at the ID, unique alphanumeric ID about the scale of the map. That is the point. A trained person will know by going through the alphanumeric ID printed at the top right-hand corner outside of the border line. Between the neat line and the border line, I think. Then at the top, along the top border, there will be a verbal identification of the street, a verbal label. And below that, you will find a thick border, always square. Then inside the border, you will find a another border, which is called neat, N-E-A-T, neat line. So, yes, right here, you have three essential items printed in the map, topographic sheet. One is the alphanumeric ID. Second is the verbal ID. Third is the border. Fourth is the neat line. The neat line along the map and across the map will also carry the latitudes or what is called a graticule, the latitude and the longitude. From the bottom, in the topographic sheet, from the bottom left-hand corner, the longitude lines will run from top to bottom. And the longitude numbers or the values will go on increasing toward your right in the map. In other words, if the bottom left-hand corner has a label 77 degrees 00 minute, the next vertical line will carry a label 5 minute. The next one following one will carry a label 10. And the right hand edge will carry a label 15. So this map covers an area of 77 degree 0 minute to 77 degree 15 minutes. That is as far as the longitude goes. Then look at the origin, imaginary origin at the left hand bottom corner. And just go through toward top. What you will find is, let us say, for example, if you had 8 degree 0 minute at the origin for the latitude, the next latitudinal line will be 8 degree and 05 minute, followed by 010 minute, and ultimately, finally, along the top by 15 minute. So, this is called a 15-minute quadrangle. What is it? 15-minute quadrangle. Why quadrangle? It is actually 1/4 of a degree latitude or degree longitude. So it is a quadrangle. I guess that is the meaning. Quadrangle, 15 by 15. Now, go to the bottom border line and then read the English text. That will say, it is a very important thing to have it. The authority who published the data, who is the publisher of the map. If the map comes from an anonymous source, it will be useless. Nobody will accept the information provided in this map because you don't know the veracity, anything about the veracity, the truthfulness of the data included. Therefore, in India, the Survey of India is the organization, and you have to keep in mind that this is the second organization after the defense that British had created in India. Third is the Geological Survey of India. Though this Survey of India, headquartered in Dehradun only those days, had several survey parties walking around India along with the natives of India to survey this region. This survey included identification of elevations of hills, elevations of peaks, as well as elevations in the plains also. For example, I'm not sure how many of you are familiar with Arivipuram in Neyyatingara Taluk. Arivipuram is also known for a place where Narayana Guru sat and prayed, or he founded a temple with instead of an idol, a glass, looking glass. So there is also a story that says about a Kodithuki Mala. See, Narayana Guru is not pre-Survey of India, post-Survey of India. So the Kodithuki Mala is closer to, it's a hill actually, hilltop actually, and closer to Arivipuram. It's only couple of kilometers, couple of kilometers away from, or thereabout away from the so-called temple there. It is called Kodithuki Mala. Kodithuki Mala. Kodithuki Mala in Kerala are very common. If you go to Jadaipara, there also would have been a Kodithuki Mala, and it is identified in a topographic sheet as a benchmark. BM, a triangle. First will be the symbol of a triangle, then BM, then there will be a numerical value. That numerical or numeral will represent the exact altitude of that particular point above mean sea level. Then, of course, how they determined the benchmark and the elevation, etc., that is beside the point. But anyway, it was done by actual triangulation. It's a method of surveying. The entire Indian region was covered like this. And only the China-India border, they say, is not walked by foot and marked by the surveyor general. Instead, it is a desk work, and that is what China claims. China says no surveyor of India walked, and they only just used a pencil to put dash line connecting, separating the China and Indian regions. That anyway is a political whatever. But anyway, what I mean to say is, like benchmark, the borders are also marked by the surveyor. It is not only of the nation and subdivisions of the nation, the regions and sub-regions. Now, Then in the see, if you go to the top right hand corner of a topo sheet, you will find a north arrow. A north arrow. In other words, that arrow represents which is the direction of north. It is our maps also will show what is called a declination. That is the difference between magnetic north and geographic north in angles. Well, for example, in Thiruvananthapuram, that angle will be very low. Very low in the sense, I think, a degree or so, or even less than that. But if you went to higher latitudes, for example, Moscow, or London, or Syracuse, or Melbourne, the declination will be very high, of the order of 4, 5, 6 minutes. And then what you do is, some of you are at least heard of compass or familiar with compass. Or if you have a smartphone and if you already don't have a compass downloaded, you can download a compass and familiarize yourself with what a compass does and what a compass looks like. So, when you are using a compass, physical compass, a device, handheld device, during the survey, and if the declination is larger than the difference between the geographic pole and the magnetic pole is of the order of minutes, of the order of degrees, then you have to set right or adjust for that difference in declination in the compass before you make use of the compass for any kind of measurement. So, you have the north arrow. Then come down to the line below or the entry below the publishing authority. Mention of the publishing authority. I said Survey of India. If CED publishes a map, CED will put its own logo, its own icon, and also a verbal statement that this map is produced by CED. Because you need an authority to make the map reliable to other users. Then below that line there will be a scale. Listen to this very carefully. There will be 3 different scales provided in the topographic sheet. One is called the verbal scale. Verbal scale. The verbal scale is actually alphabetic. In our topo sheets, it will say 1 centimeter is equal to 500 kilometers, 500 meters. Not kilometer, 1 centimeter is equal to 500 meters. That is verbal, spoken. Below that, there will be another scale, another mention of a scale, which will say 1 is to a ratio scale, it is called, ratio scale. 1 is to 50,000. Then below that, there will be another scale provided, which is actually ruling, a line, which will be appropriately marked to match with 1 is to 50,000 or 1 centimeter is equal to 500 meters. It is also called bar scale or scale bar. When you create maps of any sort using ArcMap, you have to make sure that you provide at least one of these scales, if not all. Space permitting, yes. Otherwise, at least the scale bar. In other words, each scale mention about the scale occupies one line within the inside of the neat line. Well, of course, I don't know whether you got to know, understood what is called a neat line. For example, look at the screen where I am, my image is projected in the classroom. Okay, there is a black border for the frame of the LCD screen. So, outer border, you can treat it as the border. Inner border, where the black frame ends, you can call it neat line. So, the neat line all have four sides. Neat line is inside the border. It's actually, border is a thicker line compared to the neat line. The neat line and the graticules probably are kept in uniform width. In other words, line thickness will be uniform in both cases. Now, going back to the scale, you have three different scales. You need to use at least two scales. Then there is a big thing called a legend. There is a thing called a legend. In the map also, on the wall map also, there is a legend. Except the iconos image, the India map hanging behind you in the classroom, or this municipality map stuck on the wall, they have what is called they have the border as well as the neat line, the graticule, then the north arrow, then the authority that published the map, then also the legend. When you go to the topographic sheet, the legend is actually, I would not say cumbersome, but it is all-encompassing. That is the point. In other words, it is not, the number doesn't make anything cumbersome, but what makes it cumbersome is the appearance. If you look at the topographic sheet at the outside of the borders, but to the bottom left-hand corner or the bottom right-hand corner, there will be two boxes, rectangular in shape. These are legend boxes. In other words, all the symbols, which is called symbology. Symbology is the science of using symbols. Symbology can be colors, primary colors, secondary colors, or different sorts of drawn symbols. Dashes, dots, dash and dot, and things of that sort. And why are they needed? They are needed. In other words, if you are looking at a map, inside the ideal, inside of the neat line, it is impossible for the cartographer or the map maker to write what a symbol means. For example, Velikayal. Take a topographic sheet of Thiruvananthapuram, go to Velikayal, and there will be Velikayal is large enough so that a polygon is there, and the polygon will be blue color, will be given a blue color, and the blue color is characteristically devoted only to water bodies, whether they occur on land or off land, or along the border of Kerala or along the coastal states. In every continent, there will be such water bodies called lagoons. We call lakes. For example, Vellayanikayal, that will be painted blue. Not only that, there will be a label also. there will be a English language written label. Vellayani, then L dot, or Veli Kayal. It all depends on what the space that is available. So in other words, if you look at the topographic sheet, there will be dozens and hundreds of place names. So a smart map maker will decide how many place names he will include without cluttering the whole map, without cluttering the other details given in the map. For example, take the Padmanabha Swami temple or the red church in Nepal. There are symbols. Church, there is a symbol for, there is a symbol for a temple, there is a symbol for a mosque. Then, vegetation. Vegetation is something very common. Even in deserts, you may find oases. But generally speaking, our vegetation is two types. One is the agricultural vegetation, that is farmland of some sort. Agricultural vegetation, well, you don't call a rice paddy as a vegetation. But there is how is it marked? It is marked with a certain pattern. Obviously, green color will be used, whereas a tea plantation will be a matrix of green dots in a geometric pattern, not a random way. Whereas a forest area will not carry or will not follow a non-random, will carry a non-random green color, green symbol. And then definitely the bare rock will be made a mention of. So, in fact, there are, if you count the legends, the symbols used in the map, inside of the two legend boxes, I would think that it will add up to minimum 40 or 45. Your roads, by roads, railroads, airports, you name it. Major rivers, minor rivers, seasonal streams with seasonal flow only. All these will be marked. Then homes and buildings. Buildings, small red squares. It is not actually for one square for one building. For a certain number of, it is all determined by the scale of the map, resolution of the map. Scale is also called resolution. Now, this is actually the data. This, in other words, survey data. Physically surveyed data is an important source of data for the cartographer to make use of. Here you have to keep in mind one thing. Go back to the Andhra Pradesh municipality map. There are symbols, there is symbology. But if you go to the database, you will know exactly how many number of single-story buildings are there, but not from the map. You will also know how many buildings that are facing the city roads, by roads. That will be available in the geo database. So the cartographer makes sure, based on the scale, what are the details he can provide. It is a discretion of the cartographer. Otherwise, the whole map will be cluttered. So coming back to the computer cartography and ArcMap in our instance, these are the greatest advantage of the computer-based maps, like in ArcGIS, is you can carry all the data that you collect. Probably not in the map display, but in the database. That is one. Number two, each category of data is stored as a separate file, as a theme. I said there are 44 themes collected in connection with this Andhra Pradesh study. So, depending on the need of the user, you can combine. The operator is able to combine theme 1 with theme 5 and theme 7, whatever they are. If all the themes are printed in one map, then it will be all useless. In other words, the map should be readable. The map should be usable. So, as far as the topographic sheet is concerned, topographic sheets are still usable in spite of the tons of information it carries. Only difference is if you ask for the geo database of the sheet of Thiruvananthapuram in Kerala, India, to the Survey of India, well, they will be in trouble. Because there is no such database based on a computer. It's only in files, paper files, flat maps. Well, so the printing process, how do you get a map printed in GIS? Well, why do you print? It is for display. If I want to show you a map in the screen, that map naturally will be designed in such a way that it can be seen in the last row also. What can be seen? There are also a hierarchy of things. You should be able to, here is what is called the symbology comes into question. The symbology thing, in other words, that your choice of symbols, whether colors or graphic, that has to be very carefully chosen. In other words, the end user you have to keep in mind always. Who is going to use it? Is it a policeman? Is going to use that map of Kanjirambara area or Thuluvangod area in his mobile phone? Then of course, definitely your map will have only those information that a police officer would need. If you give a topographic sheet to a police officer, he will get immediately upset. Because, first and foremost of all, the letters, size, letter or font, F-O-N-T, the font. There are several different types of fonts available in these days with the advent of computer printing of documents, as well as naturally it is built into what is called ArcMap or ArcGIS platform. The hierarchy of sizes. You probably would be getting into this issue of hierarchy of font or the font size and font type.